Hi, Marc Lowe here, and I wanted to talk just a bit about music stuff, and in particular, this album called Worlds an Illusion, and I actually have a CD version of it to show. You can see that, Worlds an Illusion. The text is a little bit light on the print cover. And here is the track listing on the back. You can see that. And this album is a bit special, I think. How many times have I said that on my page? My new album is special. Well, they're all special to me. They better be, right? Otherwise, why bother? What's special about Worlds an Illusion? Well, on this page I've talked about The Tower, the LP The Tower, and I actually shared one version of that, and then I had In the Age of Kali, which I then revised and put another version that wasn't very different except for one track in the running order. And then I kind of rethought both of them again. And I ended up with doing a number of new things, some of which anyone who's looking at this page will have seen. For example, revisiting Black Nail. How did that happen? How is it that I went back and remixed a remix? That's a strange thing to do. I like doing strange things. I like doing things that no one expects, myself included. In other words, I do them when I'm inspired to do them or something inspires me. Now, what inspired me to do this, or how did this happen? Very simple thing. This has been actually the start of many projects in the past. Last year this happened. I went through old files and I found these old Glass Gecko videos, and then that began the process of the 226-23 LP before my 50th birthday, right? And I started rearranging some of those older songs acoustically, for example. This time the Black Nail, that file from the original, there was a 2017 mix of Black Nail, the version I recorded in 2017 for a remix that someone else did for me, which was a re-recorded version from the original 2016 GarageBand version, which was very simplistic and without even synth in it or piano or anything. Anyway, I found the remix version, the file from the remix version, which I had actually had in my computer, and it was in a weird place on the desktop. But anyway, I was clearing out files essentially to make space and moving Logic files off of my hard drive, which I did, and I put them on an external disk, all of them, to clear out space on my hard drive. And that came up, and I do this, I was like, ooh, and it was like slightly different here, there, and I said, if I do this and if I do that, and before I knew it, I was remixing the damn thing. And I thought, well, maybe I should redo the vocals. Well, last year I did a new version of Black Nail for this Dark Shroud, so I didn't do that. And I just went with what was there. But I did add all these new elements, and I kept playing around with it. And then I got my Blue Moon mix, which wasn't called that until that night after I had remixed it. It was the third and final night of the so-called Blue Moon, which, once in a blue moon, right? They don't come around so often. And it was a super blue moon, so I went outside with my phone and I started filming what became, you could see on the page, the new Black Nail video, where I was lip-syncing with the original version with the earphone on the one side of my ear. If you look closely, I have that in. I was just lip-syncing with it and moving through with the Catching the Moon in the background. And that became the Blue Moon mix, which is kind of the remix of the remix. And then I did a second mix, which I then entitled the White Moon mix. And for the video, right, I split the screen with the new video and the video from 2018, that Joe Shotoro and I had filmed together in Fukuoka. That was my first PV ever, music video ever. We did together, and that was from the same source version. The mouthing is the same because it was the same vocal and the same arrangement, except that it was my arrangement and not the remixed version. So it was very easy to do that because I had the original vocals on there. So I got those two versions. Now, going back to Worlds and Illusion, going back to the track list, the first track is the White Moon mix, and the final track is the Blue Moon mix, which is the remix of the remix. And the White Moon mix is also based on that, except that it's even more me, let's say, because the Blue Moon mix has the original guitar and piano parts that were on the remix version that I did not play myself, and I've given credit. And the White Moon mix, that's gone, and my piano's on there, my piano chords, and some other samples and things that are it's all my stuff. So what makes this special, I haven't yet said. The Tower, there's a remix of The Tower on this, it's track 3. Track 2 is a remix of The Dial Is in the Bathroom, which again, if you're looking at my page, you see. I also went back and I did a video for that, but that was video footage that was taken in 2020 by my ex, with whom I was living at the time. We made a film called Spiral together, which I had edited together at that time, and I made it all black and white, and I put a voiceover with no music on it. It's a really dark, depressing thing, and I look really depressed, and I'm acting like with the rope around the neck and stuff. That was part of what the director wanted, and then I did my own voiceover for it. But I didn't use, I think, all of that. In fact, the very final shot, well, the final shot's the eggs in the pan, but the penultimate shots, where I'm sitting looking rather glum at the table and eating eggs, and it's all in reverse in the video, right? For The Dial Is in the Bathroom. I'm going to talk about the album, but this is the video, which has the forks and the knives, like all these multiple forks and knives all over the table. That was the director's idea, and wanted me to use that. She wanted me to use it so badly, I remember, and I didn't. And it wasn't to spite, her, because she wanted that in there so badly, but because it just didn't fit with the way that it ended up. When I edited it, it just didn't work. It just seemed extraneous. It didn't fit. But the Dial Is in the Bathroom video, you notice, if you look at it, it's in color, and I made it sort of cartoon effector. But it's in color because I found the original files, including the parts that weren't in Spiral. And so the order is not the same as they were in the film. They're not black and white, obviously. It was the original footage before I turned them into black and white and resaved them for the film version. So I put them in and shuffled them and sped them up and put them in reverse. And why did I use that for The Dial Is in the Bathroom? The original lyric, which is preserved, is "You were a sad man, you were hardly sane. And then later you used up your lives. You wept in vain, or you used to care." And these kind of lyrics, and it's about, right? Hey man, the gun's waiting for you. And again, I'm talking a bit about the videos here too, because there's some of the new tracks on this album. When I went I was trying to decide, I wanted to do a video for it because I wanted to use it actually as backing for an upcoming live show with the new mix as backing, which I haven't done yet live, and I'll get to that. And so I found those files. I was actually looking for the original videos that also my ex shot of me in the bathtub and all that stuff that I had used for the original version. And there were multiple edits I did from that footage, including last year's This Dark Shroud version, which was, I used Final Cut and put all kinds of special effects on it and stuff. And then I think for last year's version, I also added like another version that a friend had done for me, Akiko Honda, that she had edited, and some of that had her footage of me performing the song live, right? So all these things. Anyway, what I came upon was the Spiral, the folder, which had all the original videos for that before I had edited them in color as they were. So I threw them just into iMovie, and I, effectorized them, and I ran them in reverse, and I was like, whoa, with the lyrics and everything, it just seemed to really work. And then I decided to put that kind of cartoon effector and to leave it in color. Anyway, so that's "You Were a Sad Man, You Were Hardly Sane, The Dial Is in the Bathroom." And the mix is a lot darker than the original. It's almost dark ambient. It's not very beat heavy. There's a bit of the bass line, but it actually goes away at times. and the original that kind of, drives it forward with the beats. So it's a kind of looking back at a former self. And in the video, I think that's really brought home. Black Nail is one of the first, it was the first song I did as an electronica piece in GarageBand, and then I re-recorded it in 2017 for the remix when I was working with someone on that. So that also kind of goes back to my history. And The Dials in the Bathroom was written in 2017 for the Angel of Death project, which was originally Red Signals, which also got a makeover this year, 3 of the tracks from it, as Angels of Time, which is also an album that dealt with the past and the present. It's the past as viewed through the lens of now, 2024. So this album, in a way, is a continuation of that trajectory, although the music on it is totally different. So we have the Black Nail 2 mixes, The Dials in the Bathroom, a new mix, unlike any mix that I've done before. Major difference between Black Nail and Dials in the Bathroom, I use the original vocal and some of the other little pieces from last year's Dark Shroud, this Dark Shroud re-recorded version. Black Nail has the original vocal from 2017's Logic version. So that really stretches to the past in that sense, but the video's new, and the Dial is old video, but the vocals are newer from last year, and the mix is totally new. The Tower I mentioned, track 3. I'm almost going track by track here, talking about the videos, which I'm going to do for at least, I guess, 1 other or 2 other tracks here, or 3 other tracks here. The Tower is Be a Light mix. I had done actually another mix of that, which has no beats. The original version, which is as I had recorded it, actually, I recorded it with the vocals and all the weird noisy parts and the beats and added in and stuff. Was on the Tower album. This version does not have beats. It's based on something else that I had with a kind of fuzzy, ambient, noisy kind of thing going, and then my Suling flute and some other elements come in and it kind of builds, but it doesn't have beats. But it has the same vocal, which I mixed differently also. The vocals are mixed quite differently, and it's also quite long like the original Tower. It's over 10 minutes. I had done a shorter edit, but I actually decided to go with the full version because I actually like the way it sounds. But it doesn't have the kind of really noisy thing with the beats. And when I did it live a few nights ago, at Nepo last Thursday, also, that was more like the original arrangement atop which I made sort of, improv noisily. This is not as noisy. It's a more of a dark ambient feel to this mix. Track 4 is Chaos in the Age of Kali, which I had put as a video. Also, actually, many of these have videos because I had done the videos first. Chaos in the Age of Kali, I did play with the mix a bit. It still has the original classical guitar and vocal part with the flute after the midsection. The midsection is different. It still has some of the noisy elements, and this version also has some of the backing samples that I used on that version. Chaos in the Age of Kali. It has the same title, but the midsection has the vocals that would normally be in Chaos. The world is an illusion, so the Buddha said, etc. Don't fall into nihil. And that's, of course, World's an Illusion. The title of this kind of comes from that, right? And Chaos is also an older song. This also is looking backwards and forwards, like Angels of Time in some ways. There's also new material on here. I'll get to it. The Tower, new mix, but that's also a new piece to begin with from this year, from just like a month ago. So again, it's slightly different. I added the vocals there, and I actually added some other elements, and it's mixed differently than the video version. So it's slightly different in the midsection especially. The rest of it's more or less the same. A little bit different, actually. There's a little bits I tweaked the mix. Track 5 is Boxman. And now I thought, well, okay, Boxman, I'm going to put Boxman on here. I thought I had done it as a single 2024 version, and I did a video for it as well, which I'm kind of proud of. I think that video is quite nice. I actually recently saw the Boxman film version in Japan, which I waited to see it. It came out, and I went to the theater and I saw it just like last week, I think it was. And it's kind of cool because I had just been thinking about Boxman and my version, and the film came out, and I finally saw. I promised on this page to do a reading series bit with Boxman, and I actually bought the English language version again. It doesn't have the photos in it, which kind of was disappointing. It's a different edition, but I have the original Japanese version too with the photos I can show. The film actually started with the photos, and one of the photos is a homeless man, and that was kind of the way that I interpreted it when I did the video. So it's got the homeless man holding up the sign, you know, I'm homeless, hungry, feed me, kind of help me. It's like this, but then it's interspersed with bits of an earlier version of the Boxman film, which I actually haven't seen. It was from a promo that I just took clips from and edited. And some other footage too, with the COVID spraying the boxes and that whole thing. Anyway, that version of Boxman from 2024 was for the centennial Abe Kobo, the author of Boxman, Kobo Abe in English. He was born 1924. It's now 2024. Tokyo had all these special things going on for his centennial, so I decided to do a new version. And then I did the video, and then the film came out, and now I decided again to remix it for the album, and so I call it the Hikikomori mix, which means Hikikomori, if you know, it's people who stay at home and are afraid to go out into society. They tend to live with their parents, or if they're single, maybe just living alone. And they, you know, the image is they're sitting there playing video games or whatever, and they don't communicate, or they're on the internet using aliases, but they don't go out and communicate. So I call it the Hikikomori mix. And it's in some ways more stripped down than the version on the video and on the single that I released as Boxman for the Centennial on the anniversary of Abe Kobo, the birthday. It's a bit more stripped down, and you can hear other elements, and I actually added some elements to it, some spoken elements in the midsection, and the heavy drumming, which actually I did in the studio, it was live drumming, a lot of that's removed on this version, but there's a bit in the midsection that comes in, which is actually my studio live drumming. But it's a little bit, it's more stripped back, so you'll hear it eventually. And I quite like the way it came out. And like I said, I added some elements as well to it. It starts with the suling flute, and it's kind of starts quieter, and then it kind of comes in and builds in a different way. And I think it works. And the end is quite noisy, and it builds up. Track 6, also another new mix. This is almost an album of remixes, although it's all new. So it's like alternate versions and some new material I'll get there. The Tower, again, is a remix as well. But track 6, Hallo, Spaceboy, Bowie's song from 1995's Outside. I had covered this, and I was going to use it on the Kali album, In the Age of Kali, for this Dark Shroud, which now has been abandoned. I'll go into that too at the end. So that version, which maybe I'll mention, I was going to mention this later, but is on the Tower LP, which is separate now from this. And this version is not the same as that. That version I've published to YouTube, both as audio only, and I did a video with Bowie's, footage from Bowie videos that I edited. But this is, again, a remix. It's a different version, and also I did add elements to this too, after the fact. I call it the It's 2024 mix. And this one, kind of like Boxman, it's a bit more stripped down, at least in the beginning. It's more like an electronica sounding thing. The first version I did is really kind of like Boxman too, like it has a lot of heavy in-studio drumming, and it's kind of chaotic, really chaotic from the get-go. And this version, it's a little less chaotic from the get-go. It kind of opens a little slowly, it comes in, it's more electronica beats, and you can hear the vocals more clearly, they're more up front. And then it kind of builds, and then from the midsection, the tick, 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 tick thing comes in that I had in the first version, and the heavy drums and the distortion, but it's mixed in differently, and like I say, I added some other things to it as well. It's different, and again, when you hear it, you, meaning the listeners, if you're out there, if you're interested, I think if you compare the two versions, it's quite noticeable that it's quite a different sounding mix. So Hallo, Spaceboy, It's 2024 mix. It's a cover, but it's a remix of my own version of the cover, which is a different, and I say cover, but it's a reinterpretation to begin with. It's a reconstructed reinterpretation. Track 7 is Red Signals Acoustic. It's the same exact version that was on the Tower LP. Pulled it over here. That was recorded in my room just off the cuff before I did a talk, and I kind of mixed it in Logic, and I liked the way it sounded, and I kept thinking maybe I shouldn't put this on here, and every time I played it back, I liked it. I thought, I'm keeping it on here. I like this version of Red Signals, just acoustic. And it also breaks up all the electronica stuff, and you have a raw acoustic piece in the middle. I think it gives it a good change of sound and flow. Track 8 is Hands after Sherwood Anderson. That also came right from The Tower, the previous version of The Tower. Hands, which actually was I did a new vocal, and also remixed the earlier version of a song called The Hands. And the new vocal, it's really after Sherwood Anderson's story, Hands, about Wing Biddlebaum, this man who touches a boy or boys in the town, and one of them has a dream and tells his father, I was touched, and a rumor spreads and the father's come to lynch him, and he has to leave town and change his name and stuff, and he's nervous about his hands because of this. So this is Hands after Sherwood Anderson. If you listen to the lyrics, it references directly to Sherwood Anderson. The original version of Hands had nothing to do with it because I wasn't thinking about Sherwood Anderson. It was just a song I wrote called The Hands, and when I went back to it to remix it, I was reminded of Sherwood Anderson's Hands, which I taught that since a number of times here in Tokyo in my lit classes, and so I did a new vocal and I changed the lyrics a bit. This is the same version that you've heard if you've heard The Tower on YouTube. The next track is new, and I just put a video up for this earlier today in Tokyo time. Scratch the Image, and this version I wrote Stop Running in parentheses because the lyrics based on running. There's a story behind why I did this track. It's a brand new track with the running influence sort of melody line, the vocal only melody line, and the vocals, if you've heard it and if you watch the video, you can see it there, hear it there, has a kind of highly effectorized with a kind of glitchy thing going on, and some backwards vocals, and it's layered. And that was intentional, but I had thought to do a new version of Running, and the original idea I had and recorded, and this was on, I believe it was on the first version of The Tower again, which some people, if you're really listening and paying attention, you may have heard it. It was Stop Running. And the backing tracks they were a remixed, rearranged version from a song I did called Mayday, which is basically instrumental with spoken word and me coughing because I was sick, actually. I had recorded something where I'm coughing and talking and coughing. In Japanese, I'm talking in the background. Mayday is basically instrumental with the spoken word and the coughs in a slightly different arrangement. I had done the Running, same idea as this, the melody and the vocals from Running slightly changed with the Mayday backing remixed and slightly rearranged and called it Stop Running. And that was on The Tower. And I thought I was going to put that on here, and I had originally in one of the earlier versions. And then I thought, well, I want to put it on, but I want to change it more. I want to do something. I don't want it to sound like Mayday. I mean, I had already changed it a bit, but I want to take off the spoken word and the coughing in the background, and just make it, rearrange it, maybe add some elements, do something different with it. And for some strange reason, I could not find the file. Now I have the wave and the MP3 and all that stuff. I have the track, and I'll mention what I did with that later. It's not on here. It's not on The Tower, but it's somewhere else. I'll talk briefly at the end. So I couldn't find it, so I thought, shucks. I'll use the word shucks instead of some other word. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just leave it on here as it is. There's nothing wrong with it. I like it, and I liked it before. I liked it. I put it on The Tower. But I kind of wanted to do something, but I can't find the file, or, well, let me just put it, leave it where it is and think about this later. So I did that, and I kept, I was doing new arrangements of things. I was shuffling. I was thinking about this after I had decided to make this World's an Illusion new album, and not The Tower, or In the Age of Kali. And then I had the idea to do another new kind of version of Running, but again, rather than kind of, remixing the original version, which is, by the way, from 2019, it has Sonny's guitar on it. I won't explain exactly how how I got my inspiration for this particular version. It's a different track. It's a new track. It's a kind of dark ambient track. Again, if you go listen to it, you'll see. I did change the lyrics again. They're different from the Stop Running lyrics. I sang them differently. It's basically the same melody. It's basically the same lyrics, at least the first part of it. But I changed it and put it in the past tense. And there's some new lyrics here that I spontaneously sang, like about, looking in the mirror and this and that. And the other version too is different from the original running. They're all different from one another, but they're based on the same melody and lyrics. And then when I mixed it, I decided to put those effects on, and the backing is totally different. And there's also a stanza line from the Dials in the Bathroom toward the end of it, which connects with the remixed Dials in the Bathroom. And it also connects in another way for me with the video, because I went back, again, I was thinking about what to use, because I want to do a video, again, thinking of it as backing for my live shows in the future. But I ended up using the original running footage from 2019 that I had compiled from footage I had taken in Fukuoka, or some of it is Mizukami-san's footage too, that he had taken and even edited bits of it, and I had re-edited it. So I used that. And again, like the Dial, it's run in reverse. And there's kind of a metaphor there for me anyway, right? Because I'm going back to the past, or it's going backwards. It's the present looking back. It's the present me singing to my former self. Like the Dial feels like that, although the lyrics aren't changed much, but you were a sad man, you were hardly sane, you used up your lives, you wept in vain. It's all past tense. That was the me of then, although those are the original lyrics. But in running, I put the lyrics that had been present tense in the past tense. So I was running from the things that made me hurt, right? And the video also is going in reverse. And if you look at kind of that version of me, when I look at that version of me, I think, well, that was me then. And those were the lyrics I wrote then, because I was feeling that in present tense. But now I'm not feeling that present tense. It's looking back. So much like Angels of Time, just talking about the concept of the album on the whole, it's again kind of a, present. It's the past viewed through the lens of the present, or it's a 51-year-old. It's the present tense, present day me, singing to her about the past me, and kind of happy that I'm not there anymore. that I've evolved, let's say, in some way, not just aged. We all age, but hopefully evolved in some ways, and looking back at that and saying, you were a sad man, you were hardly sane, and you were always running from your pain, and so on. And the videos, I think, using the previous footage and reversing them and sort of doing that, it's a bit, this was not my idea at all, believe me, but I'm thinking about this now as I'm speaking. It's like, and I'm not as old as David Bowie was at the time, but when Bowie did The Next Day, when he decided his original idea was to do an upside down photo from, I think, the Philly Dogs tour or something, from the Diamond Dogs tour. It may have been a Ziggy Stardust. It was either Ziggy or Diamond Dogs or something, and to flip it upside down. And then eventually he decided to take the Skita Masayoshi photo of this, right, from the painting of the Heroes cover, and to put the box on top of that. Well, I'm not quite doing that, but it's kind of like this, looking back through the lens of the present, where are we now, right? In my case, well, with the Dial is in the Bathroom, that has a newer vocal on it. Black Nail, which has the original vocal on it, it's a remix of a remix from 2017. Dials in the Bathroom is a remix of last year's version, which is a remake of the 2017 version from Angel of Death, which also had Red Signals on it, which Red Signals also a new version on here, acoustically performed this year, which is totally different arrangement than what it was in 2017. It was an electronica song. It's looking back at the past, but through the lens of the present me. It's a bit like this, right? Or Bowie did this a lot too in his career, like I say, like 1980s Ashes to Ashes, going back to Space Oddity, Black Star. Again, you have the astronaut in the helmet. So I was not thinking of David Bowie. I was not thinking those things when I did. This is my version. It's me, and it's my footage, and it's my story. It can't be anything but. Hello, Spaceboy is on here. That's part of my history too, in a sense, because 1995, I could talk for an hour or more just about that. And on John Majora's page, I was talking about the Leon sessions. Just, he posted this last week. So Bowie is a part of my, right? He's right there. But Anyway, apart from Hallo, Spaceboy, this is me talking to my past as a 51-year-old. Okay, so the next day, Bowie was a much older man, but again, he had done that at several stages in his career too, right? Even Hallo, Spaceboy itself was a tip of the hat to Major Tom and those things. And Bowie may not have intended it to be, but the Pet Shop Boys got that because they added that line about ground control, bye bye Tom. Apparently Bowie heard that and he was angry because he's like, I don't want you to pull that into my new industrial style music. This is something new, but actually, right? That connection was there. Okay, so Scratch the Image and the video is the running video in reverse and re-edited. Kind of like, again, the Dial and Black Nail. They all have those kind of homages to the past versions in some ways, either in the sound, the mix, or the version. Scratch the Image is a new song with the running lyric, but with the improvised and past tense and changed aspects. And it's a different song. Apart from the vocal melody, it's totally different than 2019's Running, and it's different from Stop Running, which was based on Mayday in terms of arrangement. That track, again, I'll talk about that later if I remember. Track 10 is another kind of a remix of two different tracks that were both released as This Dark Shroud this year. And the reason I did this, it's called Reptilian Fire. It's kind of complex. It's an homage. Again, it's because I did a cover / reconstruction of 9 Inch Nails, again, 1994, right around the time Hallo, Spaceboy was influenced by 9 Inch Nails' Downward Spiral, and Bowie's favorite song, he said on MTV, was Reptile. So you can see how these things connect for me, because that whole period was the first year I came to Japan, 1995, and started getting into actually 9 Inch Nails through Outside rather than 1994. So that whole period kind of, they toured together in 1995 too. 9 Inch Nails, David Bowie, they did a short tour together. So this is Reptilian Fire, is Reptile, my version from earlier this year that I released as This Dark Shroud. On this page I released as Marc Lowe in one version, but basically officially was released on the Unbecoming by This Dark Shroud, my only This Dark Shroud album this year. I could have 3 This Dark Shroud albums. I could have my second trilogy already, and it was intended. I had City Scraper, which became Before and After COVID, and then I had In the Age of Kali, which you could say either became this or became the new version of The Tower, which I haven't talked about. Like, it was kind of split. So both of those were failed attempts at a follow-up to This Dark Shroud's The Unbecoming. And The Unbecoming itself seemed to be like a jumping off point for several of the solo albums. So I want to do an homage. This is both an homage to 9 Inch Nails. The original 9 Inch Nails Reptile cover has bits of my own Broken Reptile, which is my remix of Black Nail from 2017 or 18. And it's also got bits of Fragile Reptile, those 2 Reptile songs, which was my song written in 2016 after the breakup of my band, which I then rearranged. So as you can see, it's complex because my version of Reptile already had bits of my own Reptile songs from 2016-17 in that and rearranged. So that's part of this. And then the other part, and This Dark Shroud, the song Fire, which was the opening, closing track, and the first track, and what started off The Unbecoming. Opener, closer in 2 different versions. I had done a remix of that to be part 3 in the final. And that was going to be the final track on In the Age of Kali. And when I published In the Age of Kali on YouTube, I believe that was there as the final track. And I used some spoken bits where I'm talking about the completion of The Unbecoming, and I mix it in as part of the remix of Fire. And it was, the final ignition, I called it, mix of Fire. It was to be the 3rd part of the Fire trilogy it was going to be. Well, Fire is part 1, 2. The final part became Reptilian Fire. What I did was I took the remix of Fire, Final Ignition, and made what I call a palimpsest, when I take 2 or more tracks and layer them, right, on top of each other. And I often do this as part of my bricolage, which is a different thing. I'm going to talk about this because this is where the other version of Running went. So, bricolage is taking several tracks and, like a DJ set, putting into one big long track, and there may be some overlap beginning ends, right? a little bit, but when I really overlap two tracks atop each other, I call that palimpsest. So bricolage is, right, one track, next track, like a big long DJ soundtrack. And the palimpsest, which often are inside, I do inside those bricolages as the longer pieces, are the overlay pieces. So this is a bricolage with two layers, not, sometimes I do three or more and really chaotic. This is just the two. So it's the remix of Fire, Final Ignition, and the Reptile cover / reconstruction. Both of those are This Dark Shroud related, right? But because I had In the Age of Kali, which I destroyed to make this, I decided to kind of destroy, reconstruct palimpsest, Reptile from This Dark Shroud. I didn't want to do, right, that's already been released as This Dark Shroud. I want to have the Reptile homage without, like, I could have done a remix of just that, but then I wanted to take Fire, the remix of Fire, and made this, and I called it Reptilian Fire. So it's kind of a little chaotic and noisy. You can hear the kind of both parts there. I think it works really well. It's an interesting thing, and you can hear my reference to This Dark Shroud. So the echo of This Dark Shroud is here on this track. My homage to This Dark Shroud and to Nine Inch Nails and to the past, Fragile Reptile and Black Nail / Broken Reptile, which is a remix, which again is self-referential and meta, because here I have a remix of Black Nail, as well as the opener and closing tracks and all that stuff, and Reptile from that period, which influenced Black Nail too. So it's very meta. So the This Dark Shroud references here, the Nine Inch Nails homage and the homage to Black Nail, and all this stuff all in one. Reptilian Fire track 10. Track 11 is The Signs Were There. Now I did two versions of this. This is the version that is the same as the version I did a video for, which is the vocal version. It's a little bit short. It's 4+ minutes. There's a 5+ minute version that appeared, I think, on the original 11 This Dark Shroud EP. Here again, right? That was the EP was going to precede the full length, which was going to be 11. And then that became In the Age of Kali, which became this or something else. It's gone, right? So every time I attempted to follow up to the Unbecoming, I think the Unbecoming, I said this before, unbecame This Dark Shroud. It was the unraveling. It's like all these things became like the fodder or the impetus for these new albums, which is great. It's cool. But This Dark Shroud never happened again, which I think it's kind of interesting. And I guess that's how it needed to be. You know, This Dark Shroud has always been the kind of intermediate, how can I say? It's still me, right? So I can always choose This Dark Shroud or Marc Lowe. I wouldn't do a fully acoustic album as This Dark Shroud. It's basically electronica and industrial homage. But, you know, it could be ambient too. I mean, the Unbecoming has 2 rather ambient tracks on it. But anyway, so the Unbecoming unbecame This Dark Shroud this year, and my planned trilogy ended up being just the Unbecoming. Now I've got the homage, and then The Signs Were There. The second version, as I said, was going to be on the This Dark Shroud. That version is now on the Tower, which I'll talk about just briefly. The new version of the Tower, which hasn't been released anywhere as that. Well, it has. It's on Bandcamp, and so is this, by the way. These are both on Bandcamp now, but nowhere else. They're not on YouTube yet, obviously, and I haven't officially released them yet. So The Signs Were There, the vocal version, same as the video version, is here. Track 12 is kind of an odd choice, but actually it worked well. This was also almost not by mistake, but I was trying to find something here to conclude. I was actually originally going to put one of the tracks I did with Sunny, which is a long, noisy piece that originally I was going to use on our album, and I ended up not using, and I was trying out different things. It was kind of too long, and it was just, I decided not to put it here, but I wanted something a little bit improvisational and a little bit, you know? And I ended up going back to that really, 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 really long album of improvs and live stuff and studio improvs I put on here on YouTube. It's like over 2-3 hours. And one of the home improvs I had done that's around 7.5 minutes includes pieces of me singing the Motel by David Bowie. And includes at the end I play just a bit of Want. And I listened to it, and just thematically, it just seemed to click for me. All the themes seemed to tie this whole thing together. And having a bit of Want on here was nice because there's not much acoustic on here other than Red Signals. And it's not the full song, but there's a little, reference to Want. which is the first song I ever played with Glass Gecko. And, you know, when they broke up, it was Fragile Reptile and then Black Nail, and then goes back to, right, the Reptile and all that stuff. So I have Want on here, just a little tiny piece of that. Again, it kind of connects to the story, and looking back and forward is the present and the past. The way it's sung, the lyrics are different, references something else, and so on. It also references Bowie's The Motel, and there's also the opening piece, which I just improv'd, which is a kind of new lyric that if you listen to it, and I retitled it. It was just improv number whatever. I think it was improv number 3 on there. I re-entitled it Castles Made of Sand, which comes from the opening lyric that I was improvising, that we make these castles. We have these castles made of sand. We keep building our castles in the sand. And then track 13 is Black Nail, the second remix, which actually was the first remix I had done, the mix of the mix with the other guitar and piano. It's kind of really dramatic and intense. I actually really, let me just say, love that original mix. And that's the whole thing, is that I really, like that arrangement. Motorbike going by. And mix. And so, again, when I found the file, I got excited. This was the first remix I did, and I did that video, the Full Moon Night. Then I decided to do the White Moon mix, taking out the guitar and piano to do my own style with my piano part in, and putting the video with Joe Shotaro's video, the one that we did for our side project that was filmed in 2018, but in 2019 we did this Dark Shroud together. So all these things tie together. There's all this history here. I kind of, you know, like I'm going back to what the David Bowie thing, because you know, it's like I understand this as an artist, as someone who has a career. My career is certainly not nearly as long as Bowie's, but I've done a lot of music, and I've had a lot of ups and downs and bands and fallouts and this and that and the other. I tend to keep going back and forward and backward and forward in different ways, and it's a conversation with the past, and it's also creating new things and moving into the, you know, there's the present, and the Buddhist thing is there's only the present, right? So, but we have the memory, and we have whatever the future is going to become. So this album, again, hopefully, I've spoken for over 40 minutes. I've given some good indication as to why I feel this is a very special release for me. Kind of like Angels of Time was also this year, was also very special. I mean, before and after COVID, also dealt with the past, but it was more recent past, because it was dealing especially with from 2020 onward, and basically 4 years in Tokyo, that album, right? Whereas Angels of Time was more like this in the sense, the me of the present looking at the past, but that really was past material also remixed or rearranged, and new versions of things, and the lyrics like almost completely changed for Only When I Tried to Find You. And that kind of dealt with a very specific thing that actually I think Before and After COVID deals with in a different way. This is quite going back further into my you know, my band days even, or well, the Black Nail and Dial, and not even, it's post-band, but my post-band days, 2017-ish, 2018, 2019. And new arrangements and new things like The Tower, new version of Boxman, Hallo, Spaceboy, Castles Made of Sand improvisation, which is both old and new. By the way, The Signs Were There is actually a rearrangement and a new version with new vocals of a song I did in 2018 called Open Up the Scar, which actually the chorus was, now you've opened up that scar, and Joe and I did that as This Dark Shroud in 2019. So that also connects, but here it's The Signs Were There, and I emphasize that part of the lyric, and Open Up the Scar is gone, because there's no scar to open up anymore. You see, so that again is the evolution. So I've said a mouthful. It's almost 50 minutes. I think you've got the idea. I'm excited about this. I think it's a really exciting project for me. It's finished. I'm not going to play with it anymore. I'm not going to muss with it. I always muss with it. The Tower, also, I'm quite happy the way it came out. The cover is a little bit different. It's kind of a little bit more like the 11 cover, because the eyes and the eyes were this way and flipped, and I used that image of the eyes flipped both ways. That was the original This Dark Shroud 11, which I nicked, was a kind of color cover, and then I did the tower with the graininess in and the buildings in the background, and that was color as well. The new version of the Tower has a section of that, and it's in black and white, but it still has the grainy bits in. And that's the Tower. This is Worlds and Illusion. You can see again the cover, and if you look at any of the new videos for Black Nail, the White Moon reconstruction, the Dolls in the Bathroom Go to Sleep mix, and the recent Scratchy Image, those three, at least, unless I'm forgetting, I put in at the very end of each of the videos the cover of this to indicate that they're part of this album. And eventually I'll be sharing this, probably on YouTube as an album. I'm making CDs for my shows, the bricolages I may share eventually too. I'm trying to decide what to share and when and how, because I tend to just upload stuff constantly, and sometimes maybe better not to. I want to do the bricolages as a limited double CD, so I may not put it up right away. And this one I'm still on the fence, because I may be releasing it via Apple and Spotify too. So anyway, it is complete. Thank you very much. A lot of these songs you can hear, you can see on YouTube, the videos. You can go to Bandcamp, you can listen to the whole album, you can download the album. Same with the new version of the Tower. Thank you very much. Gonna stop there. I think I've said everything that needs to be said about this. And have a great night, great morning, great day, great week. And I'll be talking to everyone on this page again soon. Thanks very much. Signing off, Marc Lowe, Tokyo, Japan, Worlds and Illusion, new EP, new LP, and the Tower, new version on Bandcamp now. Thank you very much.